Some games are critically acclaimed hits. Some games are complete disasters. Some are cult classics, while others are so bad that they're great. You've got your legends and you've got your hidden gems. And then you've got games like a dragon marked for death. Hey gamers, Spammer D here. So I'm not gonna lie, just like in days of old, I picked this one up solely based on its cover art and what it had to say on the back. And I mean, how could I resist? Kick-ass premise, awesome pixel art, side-scrolling action, and online 4-player co-op. Yeah, sign me up. Released for the Switch and PC in 2018 by Inti Games, creators of the Gunvolt series and a company made up of former Capcom employees who obviously clearly worked on the Megaman Zero games. A Dragon Marked for Death is an interesting beast of a title that does so many awesome things, but never feels like it goes all the way with them, never reaching its full potential. But it's not exactly clear why, so let's go ahead and dive in and find out. The narrative opens up with a pretty simple plot. The powers that be in the world have ordered your village and its residents, those born with the dragon's blood running through their veins, slaughtered. And the only survivors are the Dragon Oracle that's been captured, and you. Or your team, if you're playing with friends. And in order to rescue the Oracle and exact sweet revenge, the ancient founding dragon grants you cool dragon powers with a matching aesthetic. Nice. He even threw in a tutorial, which is actually pretty useful, since one of the game's strongest features is the character variety. 4 characters are available right out the gate, with 2 more being unlockable with the different endings. And what's pretty cool is, if you start the game with multiplayer in mind, you can technically make a well-balanced team, assuming you can all agree to play different characters. Though duplicates are available, and I'd actually just recommend using whatever matches your playstyle. Every character feels different, from a ranged magic user to a tanky warrior to a speedy ninja, and I gave them all a go, and found that the Empress fits me best. Yeah, the well-rounded character.
Yeah, I'm pretty vanilla.
But now, moving on and overflowing with might and magic, we set off to do odd jobs for literal hours. Your first destination is the hub town, where you can talk to the locals, buy items, and take on missions, alone or with friends. The idea is that in order to get an audience with the royals, you gotta raise your reputation as an adventurer, and that means starting off small and working your way up, which gives you plenty of opportunity to see the sights, meet the locals, do some world building, live a little. And man, what a big, beautiful dragon-shaped world it is, with locales ranging from small towns, ancient tombs, snowy mountains, the land between the living and the dead, and even Castlevania. A Dragon Marked for Death is most certainly a gorgeous looking game, with some spectacular sprite work that harkens back to the SNES era. I especially love the character designs, which are what drew me to the game in the first place. And if it's unfamiliar to you, it heavily resembles the Megaman Zero games, as one might expect. And those similarities aren't just skin deep either. While it does incorporate multiple RPG elements, like finding and upgrading gear, increasing levels, and specializing stats to better suit your character and playstyle, the truth is that a Dragon Marked for Death is an action platformer at heart, and it really nails it. The platforming just feels great. It just feels great. Jumping and traversing the environments is fast and fluid, but still completely on point thanks to tight, responsive controls. Minus a few minor quirks, like repeatedly having to click the dash button to stay running, but minor blemishes like those don't in any way hinder the action, which is solid. Sticking to my main as the example, she's rocking a standard slash combo, a giant FU sword, an elemental projectile, and what amounts to a giant dragon cannon. And yes, this is all customizable too. You're able to change what elements your characters are affiliated with, which results in how your projectiles work. Changing weapons can also have similar effects, like changing your attack style, how projectiles are launched, and even grant you extra attacks. So when you add that up, times 6 different characters, well, that's a lot of bang for your buck. with the cherry on top being up to 4-player co-op that lets you work together or even split up and basically tackle stages as you please, while unlocking the story elements for each player's personal character / save file, which is a nice touch that I wish all other online co-ops would do. And you'd think that with so much going for it, a Dragon Marked for Death would be an absolute must play, right? Yeah, that's what I thought too. While my crew and I all jumped in excitedly, the other two got bored of the game pretty damn fast. And considering they're hardcore Mega Man fans, far more than I am, I think that says something. But I found myself really pondering on what that was, as it was gnawing away at the back of my mind the entire playthrough. We'll start by ruling out the music. Each stage's tunes absolutely fit their level's themes, and while some do feel pretty generic, there are plenty of bangers in there, especially the opening and credits theme. No, I think the game's major flaws are much simpler, but at the same time, much less noticeable. Nothing just juts out like crappy graphics or terrible programming would. For example, while the combat feels like it would be a dream, fighting foes just isn't as fun as it should be. All of the enemies suffer from Goomba syndrome. Basically, touching them causes you damage, and it really shouldn't since it's so easy to collide with them. It really should just be their attacks that you're wary of. Plus, almost every foe causes status effects, and they are obnoxious. Poison here is almost as deadly as it is in a Pokemon Nuzlocke. But what I really think holds it back has to be its repetitive nature. Just because you're harkening back to the SNES era doesn't mean you have to be bound by the same limitations. For example, reusing boss and enemy sprites. Especially early on, which isn't doing it any favors. Really, just how many times do I have to fight the same giant goblin, horse guy, or giant hermit crab? Everything starts to blend together. And the few that do stand out are kinda cheap. A lot of these fights feel more like battles of attrition than anything else. That or the reason you have to fight them so many times is because that's how many it's gonna take to get down their insane patterns. Regardless though, moving on, as we slay these annoying palette swaps, complete missions, and open up more stages, we basically find that everyone in this world despises you and your kin for your dirty dragon blood. And considering the common folk as well as the monsters can tell what you are, why the leaders that ordered your village slaughtered would continue letting you live, let alone grant you an audience, is a pretty big plot hole that you're probably not gonna forget about. Unless, of course, it's a trap! Yeah, one that's actually pretty hard to fall into. A lot of the game's story is told through the world's inhabitants and exploration. As you are essentially just a dragon OC, the story isn't exactly about you. And this is where I'm very torn, as an engaging story could definitely pull me through the more tedious, repetitious moments of the game. On the one hand, telling the story through the world creates a really interesting world that definitely merits exploration, which is awesome. But on the other hand, the game doesn't let you know that. In order to progress through the story, you have to find 8 secrets scattered between 30 plus stages, and you also have to recognize their meaning. Which, yes, there is a sound effect that occurs when it happens, but the first time we found one, we didn't know what it meant. We just thought it was some kind of side quest or something, so we journeyed on. Even after finding multiple by accident, and these are all very different from each other by the way, I still didn't realize that we were required to get them to progress through the story, as the stages for the bad ending kept unlocking and seemed like normal game progression. It wasn't until I got the bad ending that I questioned what the hell is going on here. And we're talking after hours and hours of grinding and repeated missions. Which ironically caused me to be twice the level I needed to be to get the good ending, since the boss for the bad one is way harder. So yeah, I breezed right through it. Hey, quick interruption. Turns out that the bad ending is actually the DLC, which was, unbeknownst to me, included in with the full game. Oops. But that doesn't make what I'm saying wrong, so take it with a grain of salt. Back to the review, which really highlights the problem with the story. there isn't much of one. It's actually more lore than anything else, and it isn't enough to warrant the amount of exploration and repetition needed to actually see the true ending. At least not without a guide. Which is why I have such a hard time placing this game. A Dragon Marked for Death really does have a lot going for it. Beautiful sprite work, excellent controls, movement that just feels right, and plenty of character variety that does warrant experimentation. There's a lot of replay value here. If you can get a group of buddies to join up, you really love side-scrolling combat, just don't mind the grind, or are just a hardcore Megaman Zero fan, then I think you'll have a good time with this one. If you can find it on the cheap, then I'd say check it out. Because at the end of the day, a Dragon Marked for Death is a good game, but it truly feels like it should have been great.